Joining me now is William Davison. He's a senior analyst at Ethiopia International Crisis Group. He joins us from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia to talk to us about the humanitarian crisis in the Tigray region. Good afternoon, William. Thanks for joining NewsHour.
Thank you for having me, but I'm actually in Nairobi.
Oh, in Nairobi. Okay, thanks for correcting us there. Now, the humanitarian crisis in the Ethiopian region in Tigray seems out of control. Out of approximately 6 million people, 3.8 million people are in desperate need of aid there, not just food, sanitation and water as well. So can you summarise the latest developments regarding the tragedy and the goings-on there?
Yes, the problem here is that there were already a number of people who had very vulnerable livelihoods in Tigray before this conflict. Since the conflict began, there has been something of a blockade on Tigray, huge disruption to agriculture, markets, banking services, telecommunications, transport. And that really has, exacerbated the humanitarian conditions. And then on top of that, because of the ongoing conflict and the federal government's efforts to control the situation in Tigray, there has been relatively very limited access to humanitarian actors to try and provide the relief that is needed to what some estimates say is 2/3 of a population of around 6 million people who are in need of aid. And ultimately, the conflict is still ongoing, and so significant parts of Tigray and huge numbers of people are still not receiving the assistance that they need.
Okay. Now, Ethiopia's Foreign Minister Demeke Mekonnen says that humanitarian access in the Tigray region is improving but remains a work in progress. How will the humanitarian access affect the situation in the region?
What the federal government is referring to is some permissions that have been given for international humanitarian workers, a big deal with the WFP. But what we haven't really seen is a massive expansion upon the ground. And so despite this rhetorical commitment from the government to increasing humanitarian access, if we remain to be in a situation where there is still widespread conflict across Tigray, and indeed large parts of Tigray, some estimates say up to 4/5 of the territory, are said to be, essentially out of federal government control here, maybe in the control of the forces commanded by Tigray's regional government, perhaps under the control of Eritrean forces. But whilst we have that ongoing situation, the conflict situation, then it's going to be very hard to get the aid into those areas where people need it. And indeed, in some of those areas, there are huge numbers of displaced people displaced by the conflict, who are in even more vulnerable positions.
Okay. Now, Amnesty International says in a new report that soldiers from Eritrea systematically killed many hundreds of people, the large majority being men, in a massacre in late November in the Ethiopian city of Aksum. Do you believe that Eritrea will face justice for killing unarmed Ethiopians?
Well, at this stage, there is ultimately little prospect of that. And the reason I say that is because Eritrea's presence, the role of Eritrea's military in the conflict, is denied by the government in Asmara and also by the Ethiopian government. So, as far as the international community is concerned, it is still a process of establishing the facts on the ground. There is a growing consensus about the role of Eritrea, and now there is increasing evidence, most notably from this Amnesty report, of some terrible atrocities alleged to have been committed by the Eritrean forces. But despite a growing international consensus about these events, obviously we are still a long way from some sort of international process that would bring the perpetrators and orchestrators of these crimes to account.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, William, for joining NewsHour. I appreciate your contribution there.
Thank you very much.